Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, and of course, upvote the video itself. I'm here a day late with Pratt Rogers. He is going to talk a little bit about Ole Miss recruiting, I think. Some big weekends, visits coming up this weekend.
What's up, Steven? How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, look, last time we hopped on the pod, we were talking about how much traction Ole Miss has had on the recruiting scene lately with the amount of visits that we've had. And since our last call, I feel that it's even been more fruitful in the way of a few big-name players. I think we may have mentioned last time that we've got a few really high-end blue-chip prospects coming to Oxford, and that's seemingly the case over the next week or so. And I don't know if you and I have had time to discuss Jamonta Waller, who's kind of an edge at Picayune. They may move him to linebacker in college, but he's been on campus, and there's been reports by Ben Garrett and other people that Ole Miss is kind of leading the charge for him recently, which has been really encouraging. He's the number one player in the state, and I think it's maybe Rivals has him ranked as a top 22 player in the entire country.
I think that's 247.
Or 247, you're right.
Yeah.
It is 247. As him is a top 22 player in the country. So it's extremely encouraging. I feel like every time we get on this podcast, we talk more and more about the level of high-end recruiting that Kiffin's been able to get done.
Yeah, seriously. And it's pretty cool because we talk about Cam Franklin a lot. We talk about Jamonta Waller a little bit because those are the two 5-stars in Mississippi. But there's some other visitors that are coming up. Like Brady Priestcorn, who is the brother of Caden Priestcorn, who is a Michigan kid. And, I like this kid. I think this kid has all the talent in the world. But if Michigan offers this kid's going to Michigan.
Well, I think it's from what I've read online and all that, I feel like it's almost a little bit of a done deal. But having his brother on campus, you got to at least
shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot. Great analogy. And Caden's done so well in spring practice. I feel like everybody has had a glowing report of how he's pushed trig, how he's quote-unquote got an NFL body, how he's quote-unquote making plays left and right in practice. That's got to be encouraging for a guy like his younger brother Brady to come visit Oxford and want to be a part of something special.
Yeah, and if you look at the Michigan thing, I think Eric All has transferred to Iowa, so there might be a little bit of a depth concern at tight end in Michigan, but he might be a guy, Brady Priestcorn, because he's more of an Evan Ingram type tight end. He's not a Caden Priestcorn type tight end. So maybe hand off the ground, that's going to change what people are willing to do offer-wise with him. Should be interesting. This next player, though, Antonio Cromartie Jr., I feel old, is visiting campus this weekend.
Well, to be honest, Stephen, I pinged you on that, and I don't know a ton about Antonio Cromartie Jr., but it is exciting that he's coming to Oxford. If it's just his name alone, that carries weight. Obviously, he's a highly touted recruit, but his name alone is what I kind of deem as the Kiffin factor. I mean, do we have a conversation with a guy like that, with a separate head coach? I just don't think so.
No. It's interesting. I do not know much about Antonio Cromartie Jr. as well, but we'll see exactly what he does. The next player is Cam Beavers from Bay Springs, which we do know a lot about him. Defensive lineman, they really, really want him. They're trying to get him on campus. It looks like he's circling back to visit this weekend. Appears to be good news at the moment.
I think so, too. I think a lot of people kind of got freaked out, Steven, because it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. He kind of had a ride fall through and just says, I'm not going to be able to make it. Gives kind of a vague explanation of why he's not going to be in town. everybody, of course, hits the panic button. He doesn't want to be here at Oxford. He doesn't want to come visit. Turns out something actually happened, and he just really couldn't make the visit, and that he's very, high on Ole Miss. He's going to be in town. But my goodness, I watched some of his huddle film recently. The guy is just huge. I mean, he is a behemoth. I mean, and not only is he just such a space eater, I mean, he has a high motor. I mean, I sit there and I'm like, the guy doesn't run out of steam. I mean, what is he, 320 pounds or something like that? I mean, 300 pounds. And you sit there and you're like, how does he keep going? How does he have the endurance and stamina to have such a high motor? But man, that was kind of what popped off the page to me in a quick 5-minute video. But I sit there and say, what a level of excitement for the in-state recruiting.
Yeah, and just weird fact that doesn't really mean anything, just something I'll bring up. My brother-in-law's brother, the mayor of Bay Springs. There we go.
There you go. Well, maybe we've got a plug then for it.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe I have an in. Now, we talked about people that we're going to visit. Let's talk a little bit about two schools in particular. Arkansas has Marcus Woodson. Marcus Woodson is going to recruit Mississippi well. Marcus Woodson has always recruited Mississippi well, and he is doing just that with the Razorbacks at the moment.
Steven, that's kind of, we sat there and went back and forth, and I was saying, I just feel like right now Arkansas has got a lot of momentum, and that kind of pivots into maybe our next topic. Where is Mississippi State right now? I mean, is Arkansas becoming that team that we're going to go head-to-head with, on some of these in-state recruits? Obviously, we're always going to, try to chase the Bamas and the Georgias of the world. But, I mean, is Arkansas starting to become a real high-end threat for a lot of these Mississippi kids that maybe Kiffin hadn't always focused on? And I'll flip that back to you and let you answer that too. But, I mean, it's kind of been a level of concern, I feel like. And I sit there and say, it's just weird. There's no Mississippi State and a lot of Arkansas right now. Maybe it's coincidental, but it's just definitely a note that I've seen over the last few months of recruiting for sure.
Yeah, I think this is the Marcus Woodson effect more than anything else. And I think that Mississippi State, how do I do this without sounding like I'm talking noise at them? Mississippi State is that person that has a lot of social tips, a lot of bad self-image. So they're going to find kids that are a little bit below the top of the level because they don't think they can get them. It's just a self-image thing. And they only play bluster to Ole Miss fans for whatever reason, but it doesn't really show on the field. But those middle kids, they're going to find 2 or 3 prospects that are going to turn out. They're going to dig their heels in, and by the time we get to signing day, those 3 players, it'll be a traditional Egg Bowl type fight. I could see somebody like, let's see, just joking, like, was it Tristan Jernigan from Tupelo?
Sure.
He gave out a top 5 that neither school is on it, but at the end, it could be a very much an Ole Miss Mississippi State deal. And also, I think State's collective, not strong at the moment.
I would not doubt that, but I'm sitting here reading reports. I think again, this may have been an On3 report from Ben Garrett or somebody like that, or maybe Rivals. I forget, but that Kamarion Franklin has already come out and said, "Yeah, man, I'm basically not going to State." And how do you not get in front of an in-state guy like that?
I think it's a self-image thing. They just from the beginning chalked it up to where we can't get that kid.
Well, you may not, but you're definitely. That's kind of my mentality in life. You got to wait for somebody to say no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they say no, you're in the exact same position you were before.
Yep. 100% agree.
It doesn't hurt you at all. The only thing that can hurt on there is your pride. And honestly, Mississippi State people, they consistently tell people all the time and tell themselves that they are as good or better than Ole Miss. So maybe it is a pride thing. maybe they don't want to be that school that gets turned down by a 5-star.
I can't answer that, but all I know is the guys that we continue to talk about, we're excited about. I'm just not hearing a word about Mississippi State, and I sit there and that may be, a new coach. That may be, but we've mentioned before on the show, Zach Arnett has been at Mississippi State for a long time. He knows the game. He knows what it takes to recruit in the Southeastern Conference. He knows what Mississippi State is and what Mississippi means to Mississippi State means to Mississippi recruits. So you sit there and say, like, of course you want to give first-year head coach kind of more of a longer leash, but that has kind of been the one thing that has stood out to me in a lot of reading and a lot of reports of, man, where is State? I mean, I'm not feeling them in the transfer portal either, which is probably another subject of discussion. And I want this to everybody to know this. I'm not trying to make this a bash on Mississippi State campaign. This is a Locked On Ole Miss podcast, but in the spirit of recruiting, that's just kind of what I'm feeling right now, Stephen.
And I just like I put in there, I'm kind of missing those Egg Bowl recruiting matchups.
No doubt. I love it. My brother went to Mississippi State. My best friends went to Mississippi State. I love it. So, I mean, that's kind of what makes the rivalry fun is when you're chasing the same guys.
Was it Robert Elliott? I think that was the guy, the running back from South Mississippi that, like, the Mississippi State people were just fighting people off so they would not discover this thing. And they had, like, closed off away from Ole Miss to keep him away from Ole Miss and all the way. It is absolutely lunacy what happens there. Chris Jones, the same thing. Their media apparatus basically put a moat around Chris Jones and kept him under wraps the whole time. It's amazing.
I've heard, I'm sure it's false, but I've always heard a great story about Chris Jones, like being held captive, basically not being able to go visit Ole Miss or something like that. But anyway, I'm sure half that's hearsay, half of it's partially true. But I love stories like that. That's what makes recruiting fun,
Yeah, there was a kid out of Provine, Tommy Kelly, I think it was. And they just completely put him in a Ramada Inn for like 2 weeks before signing day, and Ole Miss couldn't find him.
Exactly. I mean, I love that. I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't know who Tommy Kelly is, but I love those drama-filled stories. Or, I mean, I remember sitting in accounting class at Ole Miss, and the day A.J. Brown committed, and we were all sitting there like, sitting in class, watching him commit on our laptop. We were probably supposed to be studying or something, but had the live stream up from Starkville High. And I mean, that was awesome. That was like one of the coolest things ever. And then he came out and said that, quote unquote, Mississippi State didn't recruit me very hard or didn't make me feel like I was wanted and all that stuff, just to add fuel to the fire. That's not true, but he just said it to add fuel to the fire, probably be petty. And I love that. But that's what that rivalry is. That's what the Egg Bowl rivalry is a level of pettiness within the state that probably people don't feel elsewhere. I mean, you have the Red River rivalry with Texas and Oklahoma. They probably don't have that level of maybe pettiness, going back and forth, battling for maybe the best case scenario, the third spot in the SEC West most years. But that's what I come to love about this rivalry, and I'm kind of missing it. That's, I guess, is where I'm going with this. A long-winded way of saying I miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about basketball in one place. Plus, you can hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. They also have a Locked On Women's College Basketball, by the way. Coach O doing some work at the moment. Pratt, thank you very much for stopping by. I look forward to it. We'll get back to the normal schedule next week.
Sure thing, man. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, bud.
See you. Bye.